know there are probably some of our customers on the call, but some of you probably don't know us. We're one of the leading cloud practice management systems in the USA and elsewhere, particularly with the ability to automate your workflows and allow you to focus more on delivering great service to your clients. This is our second US event this year. We ran one back in June when we were in the teeth of a pretty miserable COVID experience. Well, guess what? We're still experiencing and it's still here with no end in sight. And I suppose, you know, from my perspective, this is the new normal working environment that we've really all got to deal with. And I really, truly hope you and your teams are doing well and not only figuring out how to survive, but maybe also take advantage of the situation if possible. You know, after the slowdown we saw back in April, May, you know, we as a business have seen a great deal of interest in cloud software. Again, I think the way that we've all been forced to kind of remote work has put extra pressure on infrastructures. And I suppose one of the challenges of remote working is collaboration between teams while they're all distributed, maybe working from their homes. It does feel like some of the perceived barriers of cloud technology have been removed. And, you know, I suppose one of the interesting trends that we've really seen very strongly in the marketplace is around self-sufficiency. Many lawyers and paralegals, for that matter, have had to figure out how to do things themselves without the human glue that exists in the office. You know, to that end, you know, we've seen, you know, customers actually digging into their practice management systems and actually trying to figure out what more they can do with them, or actually, hang on, I relied on someone else to do this, I now want to do it myself. So, you know, we've seen a major step change in our customer base around adoption of Actionstep. You know, many of our customers were good users of Actionstep, but they've actually had to increase or have increased their use of it. Places like document templates, document assembly. We've even included a function in our Office 365 integration that allows you to use email templates. You know, when you do things 20, 30 times a day and can save 2 or 3 minutes each time, those are huge savings that really can mount up. So it's been a very interesting experience for us the last few months. I really hope you've figured out how to deal with this new normal. Well, I suppose the topic tonight for us is around Big Bang or steady evolution. What does innovation mean for your law firm? And we had 3 great speakers until just a short while ago. We sadly lost one. Our speaker, Lenny Englander, who's a founding partner of Englander Fisher, a large law firm, sadly has been taken out to deal with another matter. So tonight we'll have Steve and Lucy helping us. I'll introduce those guys in a few minutes. But really the plan for the next 90 minutes is to firstly, if you haven't already, open up your bottle of wine that you should have received as part of your reservation to be joined us this evening. And I'd really love you to savor its flavors and tastes. And to try and make this a more interesting experience for you all, we're actually going to launch a little poll now. Our facilitator, Sammy, will launch a poll that you'll see on your screen. And we'd really love you guys to guess the grape. What is its a variety? But interestingly, you know, where it's from, which origin of country. So in the course of the next sort of hour or so, it'd be great if you could complete that, and we can have a bit of fun towards the end and see where we land. See how good you are at guessing wine grapes. Then in a moment, I'm going to introduce Steve and Lucy, and they're going to have 10 minutes or so to talk to us about an area of our business, really around this concept of innovation and whether steady evolution or Big Bang is the right approach. And then we'll take some questions, which you can log on the Zoom platform, and I will those and get with the speakers. That may take us, so we might be 20, 30 minutes into our call then. And then at that point, we're going to break into smaller groups and do some networking and discussion on the topics. You'll all have a member of the Actionstep team facilitating the breakout room. And you'll meet those members of the team. And they're really just there as facilitators to encourage, you know, a robust and fun conversation for 20 or 30 minutes. And then we'll rejoin, we'll do some summarizing, and then we will do the poll. We'll find out how good you were at guessing the wine grape. So without further ado, let me firstly introduce Steve Taormino. Steve is the CEO of CC&A Strategic Media. They specialize, and he specializes in marketing, psychology, and digital marketing techniques that maximize ROI. Steve is going to talk to us about rethinking how you market your law firm and today's opportunities to stand out. Steve, thank you so much for joining us. Over to you.
And thank you, David. It's a pleasure to be here. And just to let everyone know to enjoy the wine, I promise you, the more you enjoy the wine, the more you'll enjoy my topic. So please, please don't overindulge. So, you know, before I started this this conversation today with David and Joshua, you know, over the years, I've spoken in front of a lot of large audiences about why I believe marketing, you know, has a marketing problem. You know, many people have this idea that marketing is the creation of advertisements or social media posts or blogs, and you know, you get the idea. But in general, people are very adverse to being served those kind of randomized ads or social media posts. You know, on average, people spend about 0.7 seconds looking at a social media post. And I don't know about you, but when I think about all the time I consider about creating social media posts and creating imagery, to know that they're only being looked at for about 0.7 seconds, is it really worth all that time and investment to develop it? Well, you know, the jury's still out on that. But the point is, very few people want to be sold to or to receive information in that way. So beginning today, I would like all of us to start replacing the word marketing with the word communications. And I really think this is the evolution of how marketing, advertising, and all forms of communications are evolving. You know, and we're replacing the word marketing with communications because marketing is a function of communications, in which there's actually 5 different functions. You know, marketing is obviously one of them. But to be clear, marketing in and of itself is no longer an effective piece or a standalone method to building business. So let me say that again. Marketing is no longer effective as a standalone piece to building business. In order to building businesses at scale, you have to use 5 functions of communication. And I'll list them for you. You know, those 5 functions are marketing. That's clearly one of them. But there's also advertising, there's public relations or PR, there's branding, and then there's reputation management. And only through a very holistic approach can a business really gain meaningful traction from, you know, these marketing efforts, or not marketing efforts, communications efforts. Yeah, I have to fix my own words as well. But, you know, I hear it all the time, you know, that Steve, I've been doing print advertisement for years, or we build relationships and we work through referrals. You know, why do I need to change now? Why do I need to use all of these, quote, 5 functions of communication? Well, the reason's actually really simple. We need to use these 5 functions of communication because people no longer trust what they read. They no longer trust what they see, and they no longer trust what they hear. You know, we've been flooded with this idea about fake news and fact-checking services and all those things. And as a population, we generally distrust all the information we see and all the information we hear. I don't know how many watched the presidential debate earlier in the week, or the one last night from the vice presidential debate, but how much of that did people already have their minds made up about before they even heard it? And how much of it did people actually trust? Well, the data says they trusted very little of it, and most people already knew who they were voting for before they even watched those things. So the idea of distrust of information has now been ingrained into our very lifestyles and our culture in whole. However, when someone digests information, and when they digest, more specifically, the same message through those 5 perspectives, again, marketing, advertising, PR, branding, and reputation, when you hear that same message through all 5 of those things, your subconscious is automatically activated, and you develop a faith in that message and its authenticity. And thus, you choose to believe it. So that's why it's important to really identify all of those 5 and use them effectively. So how do you do that? Well, the key really lies in implementing those functions and having a clear understanding of the needs of your clients. You know, it shouldn't be centralized around convincing people how great your business is, or, you know, how great of an expert you are in some specific area. I mean, those are great things. Don't get me wrong, they have their place, but we really should be concentrating on our clients. You know, who are they? What makes them react? Most importantly, what do you think they want and what makes their lives better? Once you have that information, you can really use it to tailor what I call a super objective. And what that means is it spans, like an umbrella, over all of those functions of communication. So then you can create the individual messaging for each one that all tie back into that super objective. And then that's when people's subconscious begins to be activated. That's when they start to feel emotion. That's when they start to make decisions, and they don't even realize they're doing it, which is truly interesting in my world. So over the next 15 months or so, we really need to be focusing those 5 functions of communications in some very specific topics. And the ones that we've identified, and I'll list them for you, are pretty normal stuff, but oftentimes they get forgotten. First and foremost is the client experience. The client experience is clearly one of the most important things that you have to measure. It ties directly back into your brand. It ties directly into reputation. You know, it ties into everything that you do, referrals, etc. So understanding the client experience is extremely important. Secondly, you have to make culture an essential part of your outward communications. Now, I'm going to dive into that a little bit more in a few minutes, so I'll come back to that. The third thing is you have to make a fantastic brand experience a major goal. So the interesting thing about brand experience is it actually transcends the client experience, right? So you don't have to be a client to experience the brand. Anyone can experience the brand. However, every client also experiences the brand. So you could make a legitimate argument that brand experience might even be more important than client experience, but that's a conversation for another day too. You also need to use data to make very informed decisions. You know, that's nothing new. Everyone knows that the data is out there to be had. You know, the information is there for the picking. You just have to know where to get it and how to filter through it. And then, of course, lastly, you need to use analytics to determine if there's true ROI. You know, I met someone, I think last week, that started a TikTok account because she thought it was important. She is a business lawyer. She does a lot of intellectual property, those types of things, trademarks. And for whatever reason, she thought TikTok was important. But she went to her data and she found out that none of her clients are on TikTok. None of her influencers are on TikTok. And then she looked at the analytics and found out she was getting no value from it at all. So, you know, why even spend time there? And that's the kind of decisions that you need to be able to make using the data. So out of all of that, the one characteristic that hasn't changed and isn't likely to change anytime soon is the need for content in various forms. Now, it can be content in the form of writing, it can be imagery, it can be video, you know, whatever you prefer, you know, that's ultimately what you want to create because you won't get tired of creating it because you like it. But content will still be the foundation for the entire strategy for many years to come in, you know, the foreseeable future. So as markets become exceedingly crowded, it's vital that your communications assets and techniques and strategies become further refined and further unified with those 5 functions. And that's why it's important. So we know that client experience and brand experience are both extremely important, but what's the key to really making them great? Well, I'm going to go back to what I was saying earlier about culture and rehashing that. So culture is one of those nebulous ideas that a lot of people have a hard time grasping. But ultimately, you know, it's the personality of your organization. At least that's how people see it from the external. It's the outside looking in. So beyond understanding your clients, you know, this comes down to developing a positive brand culture that aligns with your clients' values and beliefs. It was, I believe, the chief customer officer at Marketo, which is a marketing automation software from Adobe. He wrote this article called "The Power of Shared Beliefs." I believe his name is Matt Zilli. In that article, and I encourage you to read it, it's a fantastic article. He pointed out that Apple customers already believe that Apple will always release the most innovative and new products. Now, I use Android and I don't believe that, but the point is Apple customers are extremely loyal and they always already believe that. And similarly, people that love Disney World and Disneyland, they believe truly that that is the happiest place on earth. So Disney products exist for that purpose, to make them happy. So, you know, he goes on in this article and he explains that what he calls this shared belief dynamic only works when every person in the organization or in that company fully understands and gets behind those beliefs. So it's got to be baked into the company culture from the very beginning. And that's extremely important. So these companies that adopt this idea will continue to have huge success without relying on some of these more traditional techniques. And I'll go back to Apple, for example. You know, Apple barely has any official presence on social media at all. You know, they don't need one. You know, their cultural brand presence is so strong that it essentially does the work for them. And those lines between branding and corporate culture are blending. You know, this year they're hardly distinguishable, and probably by next year they might disappear completely. So you have to remember that your brand is your culture and your culture is your brand. You know, again, at least in the terms of how the outside world sees it. You know, another great example I can give you about culture is the idea of eco-friendly and sustainable businesses. I mean, having a green business is a great culture, and it has great communication tactics. And being able to demonstrate a commitment to that sustainable sourcing, and some businesses have that low impact manufacturing and recyclable products and et cetera, et cetera. And those are great cultures to have, but it has to be authentic, right? So if you're trying to throw in some kind of a token recycling program or some kind of touting products as being green just to try and win customers, you know, the customers will see right through it quickly because it's not real, it's just a facade. So the actions must connect with the real values and the beliefs that drive your business. And your clients will experience them. They will feel them on an emotional level. Again, that subconscious will kick into play, and they'll know things on a gut level if it's authentic or not. So your culture is your unique identity. So I encourage you to build it with purpose, and make sure you broadcast it using all 5 functions of those communications that we outlined. So, you know, you want to make people make decisions emotionally first, then they quantify them logically later on. You know, the interesting thing here, at least the interesting thing to me, is that people don't have control over their emotions. You know, they feel emotion whether they want to or not. Now, what they do, they have control over, of course, but the emotion occurs, they feel it, and then at some point, they have to decide what to do with it. So if emotions are something people don't have control of, what causes the emotion in the first place? Well, that's the subconscious. And we've already determined that the subconscious can be activated using communication strategies that I've just described. So you really can position people to want your services, want to work with you on a subconscious and an emotional level, and they're just drawn to you naturally, which is amazing. So I know I'm running out of time, so I'll leave you with a final thought. I think it was earlier this week. Someone told me that we are bombarded with words on social medias, words in emails, words in text messages. She said, we are writing more and more, but learning less and less. And I found that to be true. So regardless of how you choose to create content, how you choose to have people interact with you, make sure that it is unique to you. Make sure that you're using all 5 of those functions of communications, and make sure that you're driving emotion and that it's tailored specific to your culture. So I'll leave it at that, David, and let you take over from there.
Hey, Steve, thank you very much. One really strong theme I really enjoyed, and it's actually resonated with me from some other discussions I've been having with lawyers at law firms over the last few weeks, is around that client experience, and the authenticity of that experience actually is one of the most That's one of the things that you can really control as a firm. How good a lawyer you are isn't the thing to compete on. It's actually the experience that you deliver to your clients. So great stuff. Thank you very much. Guys, if you have any questions, we'll note them. So I see a couple coming in here, which is great. I'll hold those until we've heard from Lucy. Let me introduce you. Lucy Bassli is the founder and principal of InnoLegal Services. Lucy is an attorney and the author of The Simple Guide to Legal Innovation. She is a former Assistant General Counsel of Legal Operations and Contracting at Microsoft. And Lucy is going to talk to us about how firms should approach innovation and what it might look like for different firms. Hi, Lucy. Thank you so much.
Hello, thank you for having me. And that was really, really interesting. I never thought about breaking down marketing into those five categories. And I'm working with the questions who's waiting, so you'll get back to those. We're gonna keep people engaged here. Very interesting stuff. I come from a different angle, but certainly one that I think will make sense for a lot of the law firms who are listening today. We have a bit of a crisis right now when it comes to the buzzword of innovation. We have a lot of law firms who are trying very hard to be innovative, and I'm so excited to see them trying. We have some law firms that aren't really trying at all. Which isn't good, and they have to. So this is going to be a bit of a call to action, and hopefully a little bit of a creation of a sense of urgency for everybody as well. I'm going to start at kind of a really high level, and then I'll pop through a few slides just to keep us organized here. But really at the highest level, this fevered interest around being innovative is good. It's healthy. It certainly is coming from the rise in legal tech that has been historical in the last several years, and certainly the pandemic is creating a bit of an urgency around tech enablement as well. So what's nice is with kind of all this flurry of activity around legal tech is that it's causing conversation for legal service providers, especially law firms, to start asking themselves and doing a little internal reflection of, how are they really doing on this? We've seen the rise of chief innovation officers. That is a common title now, and especially the larger firms. Mid and small size firms, don't have that luxury probably, but this is the key, and this is really the summary and the point of the entire talk I want to give. And innovation is for everybody. Innovation can be done by everybody. And no, you don't have to go big bang. If I'm just going to answer kind of the question of this overarching theme here, the big bang needs to be that, at the leadership level, it's important. That's really the only big bang that needs to happen. There needs to be an injection into the DNA, a sense of, we want to be modern, we want to innovate, we want to be creative, we need to be. That is really the big bang that needs to happen. Once you've kind of popped those doors open, then it is everybody's responsibility to be innovative. Every single person at that law firm, no matter how big or small. So with that, I'm going to just take us on a couple of minutes journey here, and I will share my screen, and it'll be so fluid you won't even notice how quickly I was able to do that. Here we are, and just try to orient us a little bit around why and how. I think it's pretty easy to do this. So I've broken it down. I also have 5, and that was not organized. So Steve, we're on the same wavelength. But I've had these same 5 tips for a little while now. It's about modernizing the legal practice, right? Even the word innovation is a little overwhelming. So we're going to step back and say, hey, you got to catch up with the time. For a long time, lawyers didn't even like using email. It took, I think, 2 or 3 years for most of the state bars to, get through their big challenges and fears and questions of email and whether that breaches confidences and privileges, all that good stuff. To be clear, I'm a licensed practicing lawyer. I love lawyering. I love lawyering in a modern way. You don't have to pick sides. You don't have to be a recovering lawyer and move into legal ops. I straddled both, and I continue to straddle both because I think that's the only way to really to deliver the optimal service to clients. And that's what this is about, right? Lawyering for the sake of lawyering gets very quickly called out and no longer valued by the clients. Clients need answers to their problems. They need solutions. They don't need lawyering and solid advice that is not operational. So how do we modernize? How do we kind of bring our profession into the new world? 5 simple tips. We're going to go through each one. First thing I love to start with is personalizing your innovation. I think it fits nicely with the theme we just heard about authenticity. In case you can't tell, I tend to get excited about this topic because it is genuinely an area of interest for me. I am lucky that I get to do what I enjoy and enjoy every minute of what I do. But every attorney needs to figure out what it is about their day job that really jazzes them so that they can focus their innovation on that, so that they can drive a personal sense of satisfaction. I've done no psychology research on this. This is 100% tried and tested theory here, but I am certain that if every attorney just takes a minute to ask themselves a couple of questions, they'll find a place where they can start to innovate at their pace and within their comfort zone. Simple question: what's the most frustrating aspect of your day job? You'll be shocked if you just ask yourself that and kind of sit back and not just be annoyed in general, because work can get annoying, but what's the part that's most frustrating? And then ask, is that something that actually you can control a change to? How much impact is there on other people? So maybe that's not the place to start. What's the second most frustrating part? Pick something that's frustrating enough that it's on the top of your list, but it's also something that you can implement to change and something that you own and manage. It's kind of within your own scope to change. Because now it's not a restriction that somebody else has put on you. It's not, oh, it's too hard because I have to also change all of these other people around me. But what can you change that is frustrating today? And that small change will be your first step towards your innovation journey, or on your innovation journey. An easy place to also start is thinking about an interaction with your clients or an engagement with your clients where something about it isn't working. And by it, I mean in general, with all your clients. I don't mean a particular client or particular personality or issue. I mean the way information flows maybe back and forth between your client. If there's something that takes too long, or it's always inaccurate, or there's always cycle time that frustrates you, there's opportunity right there. So that's kind of an easy place to start. My last one is really a bit of a spoiler alert about data, because we'll get to data. It's worthy of its own tip. So think about your day job every day and make it a micro focus around defining innovation rather than, oh my God, there's so much innovation I need to do, right? It's just too much. Okay, let me give you a really tactical thing that you can do that every lawyer can do. They need to, first of all, embrace the fact that a lot of what they do is a process. We are lawyers, we are brainy, a lot of gray matter, a lot of it depends, magic box, feather pens, all that is really great, but there's a lot of stuff that we do over and over and over every day. If you pick a process, if you pick something that you do over and over every day, those small steps combined equals a process. Map it out. Just start jotting down the steps that you take. It is the easiest and fastest way to identify an opportunity to improve. If you're going to identify an opportunity to improve, you're probably going to have to innovate. You're going to have to be creative and change something to make it better. My favorite example for mapping a process, intake. How do you get your work today? How does it come in? Email? What do you do next? Every time you get a new matter, a new client engagement, a new client request, what do you do first? What do you do next? And so on until you reach some definitive answer, some definitive step. That little exercise, I guarantee you, just by looking at it, you'll be able to identify some inefficiencies and you will be able to immediately define a better way, a future state as we call it. You map the current state, it's very natural to then identify a future state. So map a process. I guarantee innovation that way. Technology, I call this technology review for a purpose. You cannot talk about innovation without talking about technology. Absolutely. There's so much talk about technology that it kind of takes over innovation conversations. So I want to step back a minute and say, don't worry about all the new exciting stuff out there. There is a lot of new exciting stuff. And by the way, no, robo-lawyers are not coming to take over your job. AI will not replace you tomorrow. And blockchain is confusing. It's okay to not understand it. But step back for a minute and assess what you already have at your fingertips. What do you already use today? I guarantee you're not optimizing what you use today. Does The technology you have today, does it save you time? Does it help you get better organized? Does it help you extract insights? You know, does it do the basic things that you hope and think it should be doing for you? If we can think back for a minute, and if you're not old enough to remember, imagine that there used to be a time when we had something called the VCR, or the video cassette recorder. It was a big bulky device that sat somewhere near our very big bulky television. And we loved putting in big video cassettes to watch movies. We all knew how to press play, rewind, and eject. Why rewind? Because we were charged $2 by a company formerly known as Blockbuster if we returned a non-rewound tape. Well, guess what else every single one of those devices knew how to do? It could program into the future. How many of us knew how to do that? How many of us would take the time to figure it out? Guess what? It would have delighted you if you would have taken the time. Now, of course, very quickly, DVR came around and TiVo taught us something new. TiVo, poor TiVo, may be gone by now. My point is, technology moves super, super, super fast, and it can get overwhelming, and it can pass you up. But I guarantee you, you have things in your hands right now that you aren't optimizing. The reason I give the example of the VCR is I think about it, like I think about Outlook, or if you're a Google shop, Gmail. I'm not as familiar. Most lawyers live in Outlook, and Microsoft still runs through my DNA. It's still the most incredible productivity suite of tools for sure. So think about what you can use already. I heard in the intro, integrations with Office 365, I believe. Yeah, absolutely. That's where lawyers live. Any good technology should be integrating with where you live. So I guarantee you might have access to things that you aren't optimizing already. So don't get overwhelmed. If you're ready, though, to explore, by all means, explore and start with bite size. Think about, again, that problem, that pain point you have that you think technology can solve, and start researching there. Be very scoped and finite with your review of technology if you're looking beyond the tools that you already have at your hands. But there are baby steps, and it doesn't have to be overwhelming, for sure. Here is a very, very tactical one, but this is maybe a bit more of a, I don't know, a pet peeve that I can't believe lawyers are still saving stuff on their desktops or on their laptops or on their C drives. You cannot do that anymore. I will be so bold as to say, please do not do that anymore. It is not the safest place for your documents, believe it or not. We all know spills happen, laptops fall, cats and dogs jump on top and start typing things, or children. It will get lost. We've all had those horror stories. So please move your documents into the cloud. The cloud is safe, period. I'm happy to have that debate with anybody offline anytime they want. It's been proven. That discussion is finished. But more importantly, moving your documents to the cloud is not just about protecting your work. That is just a personal service announcement I feel obligated to make. It is about better and more modern collaboration with your clients. Absolutely guaranteed. Sending very big documents back and forth, version, which one, latest one, can you put that on top of my inbox? I still can't remember. All of that we all still live in today, the only way to solve that is by using the cloud and having these documents that are saved online in a way that you can co-create with clients. You can collaborate not only with your clients, but with other internal stakeholders and subject matter experts you might need. And of course, it helps you keep up with your versions. I'm not pushing any one particular product over another. There are lots of options. I bet today, whatever you use for your word processing has this option already available. So I will just kind of leave it at the public service announcement coupled with very easy way to modernize. Imagine the day that you aren't emailing a document to your client, but you are sending them a link, and together you are editing things. And then when it's done, you can put that wonderful final in the document file name. And if it makes you feel better, you PDF that thing and you can still send it over email, but just that collaboration experience will delight your clients. Clients are looking for and hungry to feel their law firms being creative and being innovative. And by the way, you might teach your client something. So that is a very tactical, but a super easy step. And then here's my, delighting your clients with data. I kind of hinted to this earlier on. The reality is clients are so hungry for insights into the work that law firms do for them. They just don't know how to ask for it. They assume law firms don't know how to give it to them. They don't know they should be asking for them. But there are people out there like me that are pushing every corporate legal team we talk to, and I talk to a lot of them. Please ask your law firms for these things. Make them deliver this to you. This should be natural. It isn't, it's far from it. But there's two types of data that law firms should be able to provide. At a minimum, operational data. Law firms should be able to tell their clients information about their matters instantly when asked, but more importantly, in a nice visualized summary every month. If you do repeat, so talking to law firms, if you do repeat ongoing kind of recurring work, there should be a monthly report that has a nice little visual summary of types of data. How many deals were done, deals, memos, documents, contracts, pleadings, filings. I don't care what it is that's being done. You should be able to answer how many. You should be able to categorize them in some form of what kind of these artifacts were developed or delivered or created. How much did it cost, right? Or maybe how much time you spent if you're still charging by the hour. Whole other topic for a whole other day. But there's basic operational data that must be provided. If not just for the purpose of delighting your clients with insights and information, it creates a completely different level of engagement and relationship and trust. If that all doesn't sell you, in-house teams are super pressured by their CFOs and their entire C-suite to no longer say it depends when they're asked about budget or when they're asked about work volumes. They need to provide that same data, so make it easier for them, especially the law firms that have high volume work with their clients. Then we have kind of the higher calling of using data, and that's on the substantive data. Substantive really gets to qualitative information about the work that's being done. I live in the world of transactions. I'm a commercial transactions lawyer. I would love and had to finally force one of my law firms. I spent 13 years in-house at Microsoft, as you might have heard, and I had to really revolutionize how we engage with our law firms for my area of work, because the year-over-year of work that they were doing and became really, really good at my contracts meant they were really, really good at my contracts, and I wasn't learning much from them. You know, I never made that an obvious request. Once I did, it changed the nature of our relationship. So I got to discover that my paragraph 6 was terrible. Well, my paragraph 6 is terrible, but the law firm keeps making money off my paragraph 6 because it's terrible because they're negotiating it. Wow, right? That was such informative data that I just really didn't have my hands on before. That's an example of substantive data. That's definitely a mature kind of relationship and place you'd want to get, but the opportunities there are absolutely endless, and it is guaranteed to delight your clients, even the ones who aren't ready for it. Start pushing it to them, start working with them on how to gain insights out of that kind of data. That's my pitch on data. And then I'm going to just close it out with what excites you. This does go back to authenticity. Again, we didn't plan this, but it is so 100% true. I'm going to give 3 very different examples for every lawyer that you could fit into one of these. Hopefully, maybe there's other buckets I haven't thought of. But at a minimum, most lawyers I hear about, if you ask them, what do you love about your day job? They're going to say, I love working with clients, a lot of them. Well, great. Go back to that collaboration tip. Think about how you can work with your clients in a different way that's more fun, more engaging, and more modern. Or maybe you love data. You're one of the weird lawyers like me. You love numbers. You love a little chart here and there. Super. I've already given examples about how you can use data to modernize your practice, right? Again, that's something you have to be excited about. It has to be natural to you. On the complete opposite end of the spectrum, you could be a fantastic creative writer and you just love writing. Why not think about how to do some simple language drafting, do some simple language guides, workbooks for your clients, training, helping your clients, if it's a corporate legal team, help them train their business, which is the bulk of where the work actually comes from and the people who need advice at the end of the day. So use your writing skills, channel them in a different way. Those are all things that clients desperately need. They don't want 80-page legal memos. They want you to write it in a more creative and engaging way. I've seen somebody do an infographic on IP prosecution or patent prosecution, in fact. It was mind-blowing. And they weren't engineers and they weren't the patent types. I mean, they really were trying to explain to a team of engineers in their corporation what it means if you don't take certain precautions. So I thought it was a brilliant, again, use of somebody's creative DNA. So with that, I think I went a little bit over. I know we had a little bit more time, but there are so many things that every lawyer can do that there doesn't need to be a big bang. There can be little tiny bangs along the way. That's actually why I wrote the books. all out. I just thought it was completely overwhelming, and decided there has to be a way for lawyers to be able to do this on their own in a way that is simple and meaningful, you know, and impactful to their day jobs. So with that, I will turn it back over to you all.
Lucy,
Thank
thanks.
you.
Thank you, Lucy. That was a fantastic set of steps there, and actually very digestible. I really resonate with you on just use the technology that you have at your fingertips. Spend a bit of time to fully understand it. There's so much of it there that we don't use. As you say, Microsoft is unbelievably powerful, and we use probably 5% of the power of Word or, you know, even our email inboxes. Hey, I do have a few questions that have come in here. There's a couple of themes. Some people have sent me them directly. Thank you. One theme I had, Lucy, for you was that initial conversation with the leadership, where you get that big bang of the leadership team deciding that actually they're going to. There's a kind of a want to innovate and a want to maybe take some steps forward. How do you get those leaders to get to that headspace?
Yeah. So a lot of the work I do is working with law firms, and it's turned into a bit of a you know, mentoring, coaching kind of work, and I kind of didn't know what to call it. And I'm not a certified coach. I'm just somebody who's lived it and breathed it. And the reality is it's a combination of a couple of things, and you have to know what works for those people. At the end of the day, law firms are still doing very well in their traditional ways. That will still continue for some amount of time until it stops. The goal is to try to catch them right now and explain that they need to be thinking long term. So it's a little bit of a combination of, hey, the competition's doing this. Other law firms are doing it, because they are. They're doing it in all kinds of ways, because there's no one right way. That's the beauty of this. So A, other law firms are doing it. B, especially if you're in the bigger firms, guess what? The big four, they're doing it. They're doing it all over the globe because they can practice law. In the US, they're inching up right up against it, and they're competing with all the big firms for sure. But the big four are really teaching the world how to consume legal services differently. Most importantly, the nature of the business is changing at such a pace that the ways of currently providing the legal service from law firms, it just doesn't fit anymore. Again, getting an 80-page memo that takes 3 months to prepare and then is full of legal advice that takes another month to digest and operationalize will not work in today's pace, right, in today's world. So I think it's explaining the market. I think it is bringing in the voice of the customer. It is very clear that, especially the partnership, the leaders, they have to hear that the customer wants this, even if they don't know how to ask for it. Even if they don't know to ask for it, they need to understand that this is where the needs are going to go. And if you don't deliver it, if you don't even bring up the topic, another firm will, because they will.
Yeah. Yeah, nice. Okay. Hey, Steve, one for you here, really around achieving kind of cut through. I mean, there's so getting your messages out there then, and actually the operationalizing and actually talking to your target audience. What of the 5 ingredients that you described, which ones would you be sort of starting with and focusing on to try and get that immediate cut through?
It really depends on the demographic that you're trying to reach. However, I will tell you that the fundamental differences between each of those 5 functions are very great. So marketing is basically a form of inbound. It's your clients are coming to you, versus advertising is outbound. It's you going to your clients. Whereas public relations, the PR side of it, that's generally news organization. It's basically some sort of news story. You're being featured for a reason and you can gain traction from it. Reputation management is just what it sounds like. It's understanding what your reputation is, both digitally as well as on the street. And the one that I think most people get wrong, believe it or not, is the branding. The branding is literally the emotion that people feel every time they interact with someone in your office or your group in whole. So it's not the logo or your business card or your website or any of that. Those are all what we consider to be brand assets. All of those things have to work together in a cumulative way to create the emotion that you want people to feel every time they interact with your organization. So when you're talking about getting your message to a specific audience, Again, you have to understand who that audience is and where they are. Some of them are on Facebook. If it's, you know, IP related or B2B, it could be on LinkedIn. If someone is trying to understand how to solve a problem, oftentimes they'll turn to Google and they'll try to educate themselves. Many times they'll also turn to YouTube to try and find a video about how to solve a problem, specifically in business law. So, you know, just saying how do you get to the audience is a great question, but you really have to narrow that down more specifically about the topic and the audience specifically, because it could be in any number of places.
Yeah, no, totally agree. Focusing on your target. Lucy, a question here. How much more open to innovation are lawyers now than pre-COVID, do you think?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I think it's been a little bit of a game changer. I'm going to just, you know, in short, I do think they are more open. But they're not more open. What hasn't changed is modernizing the day-to-day of their core practice, like, right, their actual thinking. They're not suddenly interested in, well, can I, you know, bring in some AI that's going to help me automate this piece of my day job? I mean, I think that's still a leap and will be. So that hasn't changed. What COVID has changed drastically is the collaboration type of technology, right? The infrastructural type, the underlying things where they realized overnight, I can't find something. Well, guess what? I can't walk down the hall to Sally, the secretary from the 50s model, right? That stuff's, those days are just poof, gone. And I think that is the biggest game changer right now. So this is the opportunity to really push the infrastructural, right? I think something like your product, right? Pushing something that is core to the how work is done, but not to the what work they're doing necessarily quite yet. That still is the natural progression, and you know, we're on that journey. But the opportunity right now for that infrastructure is prime. They're just they're actually trying to use technology to do things the way they used to, which is fun, because they're like chatting and then they'll be like, hold on, let me ask Susie. Susie, can you find the document? I'm like, look at you, you're on chat. I bet if you're on chat, like in Microsoft Teams, I bet you could access the document somewhere in this team, right? But it's good baby steps. So yes, I think the opportunities are there.
Okay. And Steve, one final question here before we head to our breakouts. How should a firm measure client experience? What are the data points that they're kind of looking for that start to give you that insight as to how you're doing?
Oh, this is a great question. I love it. So analytics softwares are fantastic. There's a lot of suites that you can use that, you know, are pay to play, but there's a lot of great suites as well. There are so many data metrics that you can monitor. It can really be overwhelming, absolutely overwhelming. But there's really 6 that I think are most important to any professional service business, which of course includes law firms as well. Brand reputation is obviously one of them. You can monitor online reviews. You can monitor reviews on Glassdoor of how people think it is to work within your organization. Mentions on social medias. So you can monitor who mentions your organization, who mentions certain lawyers. It's key to understand that specifically in the legal industry that while, you know, your clients like to work with a brand, they much prefer to work with a specific lawyer. So you probably want to set individual lawyers up as thought leaders and then monitor the mentions of those lawyers as related to their areas of practice. Obviously, client satisfaction is a key. There's great softwares out there that you can run polls and find out how people are viewing your organization. Client loyalty. But I think the 2 that really matter most to most organizations is the cost per lead and client acquisition cost, as opposed to the lifetime client value. So sometimes it's difficult to calculate what the lifetime value of a client is, but what you can do is you can set some general parameters of what we call client types, understanding that, you know, certain client types might be one and done. Others, they might come back once or twice a year, and then you might have a few that you have to work with on a month-to-month or maybe even a week-to-week basis, depending on certain projects they're involved with. And when you understand what the lifetime value is of a certain client type, at that point, you can really evaluate what the client acquisition cost is, and is it worthwhile to invest in some sort of communications campaign to attract more of those types of clients. So those are the ones that jump out to me initially.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, I've seen some firms use things like Net Promoter Score, quick survey, post that, this kind of surveying kind of activities, post engagements, and that gets you some really great feedback and a kind of score you can trend as well.
Agreed.
Nice one. All right. Great stuff, guys. There are a couple more questions here, but we'll maybe save them for our breakouts. Let's leave ourselves in the hands of Sammy, and if you are in any doubt on the wine, obviously have a little look at the poll and see if you can guess the grape and where the wine came from. Sammy, we're in your hands to head for our breakouts. We'll spend maybe 20-25 minutes in these breakouts, and then we'll reconvene. It was very thought-provoking and kind of different perspectives, but actually remarkably hung together really nicely there when thinking about innovating and building our firms. I also thank the team for helping put this together. Sammy, thank you for facilitating. You did a fantastic job. These are always quite stressful events for those that are kind of leading and participating in it, and it worked really smoothly. Thank you. So let's do our wine poll. Why don't we gather that together? Everybody in my group had tasted the wine, which was great. Well, that's interesting. So I've got the results in front of me here. We have 24% of you went for Cabernet Sauvignon, 80% Shiraz, 18% Pinot, and we had what was it? 18% Sangiovese. So quite a kind of breakdown there. So actually, I can tell you that the grape variety was actually Sangiovese, which may come as a surprise to 82% of you, that didn't get that. So bad luck. That was a left field grape for sure. Not one of the big ones. Indeed. What are the flavors of the wine? So a Sangiovese has a vanilla, dark cherry, cranberry, kind of dried plum flavor. Rich dark fruit and mocha chocolate flavor. You guys went for, or 25% of you went for the correct one there. 47% of you went for the dark fruit flavors. And then we also had the location of the wine, which is kind of interesting. And again, huge leader there was the USA. It's funny you should all go for that. We should have gone for something a bit further afield, but it was a Sonoma County 2018 Sangiovese Platinum Series wine. So anyway, I hope that was fun. Sounds like you all need to go and do some more wine training, as far as I can tell. All right, thank you so much to everybody. It's been really fun hosting you. And I wish you the best of luck through the coming few months, and let's hope we can find our future normality. Good luck to you all, and we'll speak to you soon.